Luna's scar. The phone buzzes again on my mahogany desk. Eleanor flashes across the screen for the 5th time today. I don't answer. Instead, I stand at my office window, 23 floors above the bustling city, wearing a charcoal power suit that cost more than what my mother spent on groceries in a month. My reflection stares back at me, Luna Lovely, senior executive at one of the nation's top tech corporations. Yet behind my success lies a scar that refuses to heal, a wound carved deep by the very person who should have protected me most. The story begins 7 years ago, when I was 16 and naive enough to believe that family meant unconditional love. I remember that rainy October evening like it was yesterday. Mom had just married Richard, and our house suddenly felt crowded with the arrival of 4-year-old twins, Marcus and Sophia. At first, I embraced my role as the big sister, helping with bedtime stories and weekend activities. But something shifted in Mom's demeanor. Her smiles became forced when directed at me, her conversations increasingly focused on the twins' needs, their future, their potential. The subtle changes escalated into something more sinister. Eleanor would make comments about how much space I occupied, how my teenage appetite was draining the family budget, and how Marcus and Sophia needed their own rooms now that they were getting older. Richard, weak-willed and completely under Eleanor's influence, would nod along, occasionally throwing me apologetic glances but never standing up for me. The final confrontation came without warning. Eleanor called me into the living room where she and Richard sat like judges at a tribunal. A stack of bills lay spread across the coffee table like evidence of my crimes. "We can't afford to keep supporting you anymore," Eleanor announced, her voice cold and clinical. "You're old enough to be independent. Richard and I have discussed it, and we think it's best if you moved in with your grandparents." I felt the floor disappear beneath me. "But Mom, I can get a part-time job. I can contribute more around the house." "The money you could earn wouldn't cover a fraction of what Marcus and Sophia need for their development," she replied, emphasizing their names like they were precious gems while mine was dirt. "They deserve the best opportunities, Luna. They have potential that shouldn't be wasted on supporting someone who's already had their chance." "Their chance?" The words stung like a physical blow. "I'm your daughter too." Eleanor's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something ugly underneath. "I sacrificed my entire youth raising you alone. Now it's time for you to give something back by not being a burden anymore." Richard packed my belongings into 2 small suitcases, avoiding eye contact the entire time. As I walked out into the storm, carrying everything I owned, Eleanor's final words followed me. "Don't expect to come crawling back. We're done here." That night, Grandma Evelyn held me as I sobbed, her gentle hands stroking my hair while I tried to comprehend how my own mother could discard me like unwanted furniture. Grandpa Robert's jaw tightened when he heard what happened, but they welcomed me with open arms, creating a sanctuary in their modest home. The next few years blurred together in a haze of determination and desperation. I worked every job I could, fine waitressing at diners, tutoring younger students, cleaning offices after school. Every dollar went toward my education fund, while I maintained perfect grades, driven by a burning need to prove Eleanor wrong about my worth. When college application time arrived, I applied for every scholarship available but fell short of covering full tuition. Eleanor and Richard refused to contribute a single dollar or even provide financial information for aid applications. "You wanted independence?" Eleanor told me over the phone. "Figure it out yourself." Salvation came from an unexpected source. Uncle Marcus, Grandma's younger brother, believed in my potential enough to co-sign student loans. His faith in me became the foundation for everything that followed. I majored in information technology, excelling in ways that surprised even my professors. My analytical mind and relentless work ethic caught the attention of a small tech startup where I interned. By graduation, that startup had been acquired by a major corporation, and I moved with the transition. Within 3 years, I climbed from entry-level analyst to senior management, earning a salary that would have seemed impossible during those desperate teenage nights. Adrian, my closest colleague and friend, became the brother I never had, brilliant, loyal, and one of the few people who knew the full story of my abandonment. I kept my success secret from everyone except Uncle Marcus, who deserved to know his investment in me had paid off spectacularly. Unfortunately, his pride led to an inadvertent betrayal during a family gathering where Eleanor was present. Within days, she had tracked down my contact information and learned about my position. The confrontation that followed would haunt me for months. Eleanor and Richard appeared at my apartment door one evening, their faces masks of barely concealed desperation mixed with entitlement. I almost closed the door immediately, but curiosity about their motives overrode my instincts. "We need to talk," Eleanor demanded, pushing past me into my carefully decorated space. Her eyes swept over my expensive furniture and artwork with naked greed. "About what?" I asked, crossing my arms defensively. "About family responsibility," Richard interjected weakly. "Marcus and Sophia are applying to colleges soon. They need the best education possible. And you think that's my problem because—" I kept my voice level despite the rage building inside me. Eleanor's composure cracked. "Because you owe us." I raised you for 16 years, sacrificing everything for your ungrateful existence. Now that you're successful, you have an obligation to help your siblings achieve their potential." "My siblings?" The word tasted bitter. "These are the same children you chose over me? The ones whose futures were more important than keeping your own daughter housed and fed?" "That's different," Eleanor snapped. "They're younger, more vulnerable. They need protection and investment in ways you didn't." "I was 16. My voice rose despite my efforts to remain calm. "I was a child who needed her mother, and you threw me away like garbage." Richard attempted to play mediator. "Luna, please understand our position. The business failed, we have debts, and the twins deserve the same opportunities you've created for yourself." "Opportunities I created for myself," I repeated slowly. "After you abandoned me, after you told me I wasn't worth the space I occupied in your house, after you made me feel like a burden for existing." Eleanor stood abruptly, slamming her hand on my coffee table. "Stop playing the victim. You turned out fine, didn't you? Our decision made you stronger, more independent. You should be thanking us." The audacity of her statement broke something inside me. "Thanking you? For the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what I did wrong? For working 3 jobs while maintaining perfect grades just to prove I deserved to exist? For the therapy I needed to understand that my mother's rejection wasn't my fault?" "Drama queen," Eleanor muttered, but I caught the flash of uncertainty in her eyes. "Get out," I said quietly, my voice carrying steel. "Get out of my home and don't come back." "You'll regret this," Eleanor hissed as Richard pulled her toward the door. "Family is everything, and you're throwing it away for money." "I'm protecting myself from people who see me as an ATM rather than a human being," I replied, opening the door wider, "which is exactly what you trained me to do." After they left, I sat in my empty apartment for hours, processing what had just occurred. The encounter confirmed every suspicion I'd harbored about Eleanor's motivations. She hadn't missed me or regretted her decision, she simply saw an opportunity to exploit the success she'd tried to prevent. The harassment began immediately. Eleanor created multiple email accounts to bypass my blocks, sending messages that ranged from guilt-tripping manipulation to outright threats. She contacted my workplace, claiming to be my mother and demanding to speak with me about a family emergency. When that failed, she showed up at my office building, making enough of a scene that security had to escort her out. I realized passive resistance wouldn't be enough. Eleanor's behavior was escalating, and I needed professional help to end it permanently. I contacted Helen Westbrook, an attorney specializing in family law and harassment cases. Helen listened to my story with growing concern, taking detailed notes about each incident. "You have grounds for a restraining order," Helen concluded. "The pattern of harassment is well documented, and her escalating behavior suggests she won't stop voluntarily." I also hired Jackson Turner, a private investigator recommended by Helen. His job was to dig deeper into Eleanor and Richard's financial situation, looking for evidence that might explain their desperation or reveal other potential issues. The attack came without warning. I arrived home from work to find Eleanor waiting in my apartment building's lobby, having somehow convinced the doorman to let her inside. Before I could call security, she launched herself at me, screaming accusations and clawing at my face. "You destroyed our family. You ruined everything. You owe us your success," she shrieked, pulling my hair and striking me with surprising violence. Self-defense classes kicked in as I managed to restrain her, pinning her arms while she continued to rant. Other residents called the police, who arrived to find Eleanor still struggling and threatening to make me pay for my selfishness. The arrest was just the beginning. Jackson's investigation revealed information that shocked even Helen. Eleanor and Richard's business hadn't just failed, it had collapsed under suspicious circumstances involving embezzlement and fraud. They owed money to dangerous people, and Eleanor had been attempting to access a trust fund that Grandma Evelyn had secretly established for me years earlier. Most devastating of all, Jackson discovered that my biological father, William, had been trying to contact me for years. Eleanor had intercepted every letter, every birthday card, every attempt at communication. William was a successful engineer who had genuinely loved me, but was kept away by Eleanor's lies and manipulation. She had told him I wanted nothing to do with him while simultaneously telling me he had abandoned us. The court hearing was a revelation. Helen presented overwhelming evidence of Eleanor's harassment, fraud attempts, and emotional abuse. Richard, finally finding some backbone, testified about Eleanor's manipulative behavior and admitted his own cowardice in enabling her treatment of me. When confronted with evidence of the intercepted communications from my father, Eleanor's facade completely crumbled. She screamed denials and accusations until the judge ordered her removed from the courtroom. The restraining order was granted immediately, along with orders for financial restitution and community service. The aftermath brought unexpected gifts. Richard, freed from Eleanor's toxic influence, apologized sincerely for his weakness and cowardice. Marcus and Sophia, now old enough to understand what their mother had done, reached out to express their horror at her behavior. Marcus especially seemed eager to build a real relationship with his sister. Most importantly, Jackson helped me contact William. Our first meeting was emotional and healing, filled with years of missed connections and shared grief over Eleanor's deception. He welcomed me into his life without reservation, proud of the woman I had become despite the obstacles Eleanor had created. Today, standing in my office, I no longer feel defined by Eleanor's rejection. The scar she left has become a source of strength rather than shame. I built my success not because of her abandonment, but in spite of it. The family I've created through Choice William, Uncle Marcus, Grandma and Grandpa, Adrian, and even Marcus and Sophia proves that love isn't determined by blood, but by respect, support, and genuine care. Eleanor remains trapped in her own bitterness, serving her sentence and facing the consequences of a lifetime of manipulative behavior. I've moved forward, stronger and more confident in my worth than ever before. The little girl who was told she wasn't worthy of love has become a woman who knows exactly how valuable she is. Some wounds leave scars, but the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fires. Eleanor may have tried to break me, but instead, she taught me exactly who I never want to become. And for that twisted gift, I suppose I should thank her, though I'll do it from a very safe distance.